Hey guys, Steve Moran here with another episode of Foresight TV. I'm really pumped up about this. I think this is probably the first time I have ever shared a guest with Malcolm Gladwell, which is probably about as close as I would get. Stella Volpe is a professor at the University of Virginia. She is focused on nutrition and health. And she's also a world-class field hockey player. We are going to get to that. But first, this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Stella, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Steve. But I have one correction. I'm at Virginia Tech, University of Virginia.
Oh,
is a rival of ours. So no, it's okay. I just I corrected that so that anybody who might be listening from Virginia Tech will know that I can't say I'm from UVA.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You're from the better institution, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. So I want to start with a little backstory about how I discovered you. Big Malcolm Gladwell fan. I have dogs that I walk. And rather than doing nothing, I put on things like podcasts. And Stella was on a Malcolm Gladwell podcast where she was talking very specifically about some behavior modifications she did. On a study she did, I'm hoping I'm getting this right, with some university students. So as you know, there's sort of this freshman 15, and the idea was that they could do some modifications, very subtle modifications to help with diet for these students to, and she did some very clever stuff that was very successful. And I thought, man, this is the stuff that senior living needs. And in particular, one of the things that we see in senior living, Stella, is there's a lot of talk about health and nutrition and wellness in the industry, believing that that's the right thing to do. It's a little curious because when I hear people talking about going shopping for senior living, I don't ever hear people sort of saying that's the thing I'm looking for. They're looking for safety and security, but it doesn't mean it's not important. But before we get to all of that, I want to talk about field hockey. I was doing a little research about you, and it turns out you are this field hockey rock star that we've got on. And so I want to hear about that first.
Well, thanks, Steve. And it's really nice that you found out about that. So I represented the U.S. on the USA Masters national team for the 55 to 60, 55 to 59 years old. And we just played for the Masters World Cup in Cape Town, South Africa, beginning end of September, beginning first 2 weeks of October. We didn't get a medal, unfortunately, but we played well. And I was fortunate that was my second World Cup team. I played in 2018 in Terrassa, which is outside of Barcelona. And so it's really exciting because it starts at 35 is our master's level. And we have 35, 40 on up to 70. And we have both men's and women's national teams. So it really is an honor and privilege to be able to do that. And I feel really grateful that I can continue to do that.
And were you doing that in college? Is that how you got started, yes, or is this later in life?
Sorry, I needed to wait till you were done. My apologies. Started in 9th grade and have been playing ever since, all through college, after college on club teams, coached a club actually here when I was getting my graduate degree here, and then refed and continued to play. And then, tried out for the team in 2018. 2020 was supposed to be the Cape Town because the World Cup for Field Hockey Masters is 2 years. But it got canceled due to the COVID. And then I actually made the indoor World Cup team in 2022, which was going to be just in Virginia Beach, not far from me, 5 hours, but that was canceled due to COVID. So we hope the next indoor won't be canceled. And the next outdoor, we don't know where it will be yet, but we'll find out.
Well, that is really, really cool. So
Thank
let's
you.
talk about your work passion and the
Mhm.
kind of the work you're doing in wellness and fitness and health and diet. And I maybe just kind of give us a little history about that. And then I want to sort of dig into what this might mean and what you can teach senior living operators.
Absolutely. And it's really great because when you asked me to be on this, I was again very, very flattered. My work is research is what I call throughout the lifespan. So I focus on obesity and diabetes prevention mainly. I also have an arm of studying athletes because my background is both a master's in exercise physiology and a PhD in nutrition. So I typically combine those in my research. And so some of the things I've done, I did a postdoc at Berkeley, which focused on minerals, as did my dissertation. And I kind of kept the mineral side of what I do. I know that's not really what you want to hear about, but magnesium, for example, is what I work on, and it can really help people with diabetes. But one of the things I love to do is what you alluded to in the introduction, and that is changing the environment to make it more healthful for people, and almost a passive intervention.
So let's tell the story about what got you onto Malcolm Gladwell and the thing you did there that you talked about. I think it's a really cool story. And I think it has, the principles have very direct application for senior living.
Well, I can tell you, I'll try not to make it too long, but it was very exciting. And when you said how much you loved him, Malcolm Gladwell, that made me smile when you emailed me. So it was February of 2022, and I see this email from Malcolm Gladwell, and I'm thinking to myself, that can't be the real Malcolm Gladwell. Indeed, it was. It was an enthusiastic email saying, I would love it if you would be on my revisionist history podcast, because the theme of that podcast will be basically what is your dream research you would do, your pie in the sky research that you would do if you had all the funding in the world or any amount of funding you needed. And so when I replied to say yes, it was extremely exciting. And he was enthusiastic again. He is as wonderful as he is, as you hear him, and very, very talented and smart, as we all know. And it was really fun. We talked for an hour, even though, obviously he had I was the fourth of four. But we talked for an hour, and it was so much fun, and it was really a exciting thing for me. And it was great when he said, because I did not, of course, hear the final version until it came out.
Right.
And I was listening to it with my husband, and when he introduced me and said, perhaps my favorite was Stella, I literally jumped. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm Malcolm's favorite. And I emailed him to thank him for that. And he said, no, I mean it. You were my favorite. And I said, well, thank you. It was just really fun to be able to do that with him and be able to share those ideas. And as you heard, because you listened to it, he had amazing ideas to intertwine, which was, I think, what made it so much fun for both of us.
Yeah, and so I'm going to actually do a little advertisement for revisionist history. It's a wonderful listen. He's very eclectic in terms of what he thinks about and talks about. He's a fabulous storyteller. He has fabulous guests. So if you're driving, you're out walking, exercising at the gym, perfect way to grow your mind as you're doing that. But let's talk about what you did for the students.
Yes. So the study, when he first asked me, if I could just go back to that for a second, and I actually thought about, what would I do? So at first I was like, what would I do? I was trying to think of something so different. And then I said, I need to stay in the wheelhouse that I was in with my research, but I could expand it. So what I did, the research study to which you're referring is one where we did at a university, and it was, I want to say, a simple idea, but it was very, of course, difficult to implement because there was so much that we did. However, the basis of it is you stated, to prevent the freshman 15 as we all know it. And and I always say we, because I have my grad students and my project managers, et cetera, who always help with these. This was an NIH, National Institutes of Health funded grant, and we decreased the portion sizes by about 20% in one dining common and kept it the same in the other. And of course, all the behind the scene things that we had to do, working with the food service director and then all the food service employees, because if you think about it, right, if you work in food service and you are feeding thousands of students a day, if you're cutting pizza or cake or whatever in a certain number every day, you have to retrain yourself to now change that a little bit. And so we had to work with the food service employees, and we did not tell them why we were doing this, because you probably might remember this, when you were in college, you go down the food line and you get to know the food service employees, and they're like, let me give you a little extra, right? Yeah. So they were all decreased by about 20%, and we had to keep an eye on that. And we every so often had to talk to the managers just to say, hey, it looks like they're kind of getting back to where they were. Could we just make sure that we're upping this? It was not to get anybody in trouble. Let's just keep this as best as we can. So it was an environmental intervention to hopefully decrease the freshman 15. And indeed, and the students didn't know. So obviously this was all approved by the Institutional Review Board, but the students were looking at this as sort of a health, us following them as freshmen. And we found that although both of them increased a little, that the folks, the students in the dining commons where the intervention was, pretty much had a steady body mass index, and the students in the other one had a slightly increased body mass index. So we were really pleased to see those results.
And were there complaints about it? Did the students did the students even have a sense that they were being, I don't know if you will, cheated out of some of their food?
None of them noticed. It was so slight. And we never kept them from going up as many times as they wanted. So we had all these different measures. We measured, every so often we'd be in there measuring their tray weights. We measured their dietary intakes. We measured their activity, because we were hoping nothing of that changed, because we wanted the only thing to change was what we did. And so they didn't. And I think it's because we didn't say you could only go up once. We never changed their usual habits at all.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about senior living here for a minute. Jada, why don't you put us up side by side here? Probably, so I want to say, I always forget to do this, but Jada is running, Jada Clint, who's part of our team, is running this in the back, and she's doing an amazing job, and she never really gets the credit she does. So Jada, I want to say thank you for what you're doing here. So I'm a senior living operator. I come to Stella, I'm watching this, I come to Stella and I say, okay, I got this senior living community. We provide typically, can be anywhere, depending on the level of care, anywhere from 1 to 3 meals a day. And it's the one place where I touch residents every day. I want them to have a great experience, but I also want to keep them healthier. Where would we start to try to figure this out? And food's kind of, particularly as we get older, food becomes this really big deal. It's the social gathering, and I kind of have expectations for food. So I'm going to stop there.
I think that's great. And it's such a big question. As you know, Steve, purposefully, that's a big question, and it's a great question. I would start at if I were to start just with the food, which is what you've just asked,
right,
I would certainly make sure that pleasurable foods are always offered, especially as people get older. Like, as you said, it's very important to have, whatever it is, the cake, the ice cream, those desserts. But at the same time, ensuring that what we provide older individuals, that the food has a good taste, and that it looks good too, because you said this, food is social. So looking at it, making sure it smells good, making sure it tastes good, and also providing the foods that are, that might be needed by people who have chronic conditions, where the food that they consume, they might not be able to consume a certain food. So we want to make sure that the variety there can also be consumed by those individuals. Say, for example, if someone has diabetes mellitus, we want to make sure that we provide the right balance of carbohydrates and proteins and fats so that their blood sugar stays pretty level throughout the day.
Yeah.
That's the general answer.
Yeah. So you actually said something I want to dig a little deeper with. You said if we're talking only about food, which suggests you think it ought to be more comprehensive than just food.
Yeah, I can't help but think about, when I talk about health, that there's that balance of food, physical activity. I don't mean exercise. It doesn't have to be formal. Also, sleep, and things that can help reduce stress. So it doesn't have to be meditation per se, but that people do things that help them reduce stress and make them sort of feel good about each day. And so to say that makes them happy, I guess, could be a very broad term. So I can't help but think about it, all those things.
Yeah, I find myself thinking right now. I think, man, I'm trying to think who there's some really great operators in your neck of the woods. Actually, I'm not going to name it because I don't want to put somebody else on the spot. But I'm thinking this particular person who I have tremendous respect for, they had to bring you in and have you just kind of explore what could be done. The wellness thing is really has the ability to have a profound impact, both on people's lives and on the economics of a community, right? So I have a Juniper Communities. The number that they've talked about very openly is they've done some wellness things, and they found that they've been able to extend the length of stay for their average length of stay for their residents, which has, even if you get an extra month and a typical resident stays, say 18 months, that's like adding 7 or 8 residents to your building over the course of the year. And so I think the challenge is that we sort of, there's this expectation. I mean, if you're going to I won't say the Ritz-Carlton because that's probably not typical for most senior living, but you're going to, a high-end Marriott or something, or a high-end restaurant, you kind of you want to just get what you want and not be manipulated. And so how do you balance that?
Oh, I think when people do those special things, they should get what they want, Steve, because if you're going to splurge like that, it's extremely important. Now, I say that a little bit with a caveat because over the years, people eating out has increased tremendously. Now, that's changed a bit after COVID, but over the years, how it used to be a treat if you went out maybe, once every so often, and so you'd splurge. So I do want to say that if someone does go out to eat a lot, then the balance needs to occur of, okay, well, I guess I can't always get huge portions or a big dessert every single time, so that they balance it out depending on, again, what their lifestyle is about. But I tend to sort of share this 80-20 rule that 80% of the time we should eat those foods that are most healthy for us. And then those 20% of the times eat those foods that are fun. So on a daily basis, I think you should always chocolate every day is a very good thing.
Oh man, that's the one quote we're just going to take away is chocolate every day is a good thing. So I fully get this. I think the challenge that I see in senior living is that a lot of senior living operators sort of go into the marketplace saying we're offering 4-star dining every single day. And it's probably not really 4-star dining. I mean, 4-star dining is really, really hard to do. And they're like only 3 restaurants in the whole country that are 5-star Michelin. So that's like, almost impossible to do. And I'm not sure most senior living is really 4-star, but even if you're sort of that's your aspiration, I'm just not sure that's very healthy. And I mean, can you do 4-star dining and make it healthy?
Oh, yes. Oh, okay. I say that without hesitation. You can make it 4-star dining and have it healthy for sure, because there are so many little substitutions that really great chefs can do and can still make it healthy. And then the other thing can be, even if the portions are decreased just a little, that can still allow people to consume some of the foods they enjoy, but not overdo it either. So for sure, you can make things really good and still be very healthy and be very creative.
So I'm going to ask maybe a really dumb question, but what determines a portion size?
That's a great question. It's not a dumb question at all. So the USDA and, the dietary guidelines, et cetera, they talk about portion sizes. So an example I'll tell you is for chicken. So we say that the size of the palm of your hand is about a portion size for chicken, which is about 2 ounces. But say you go out to eat, there's like people say, well, we have an 8-ounce steak. So I tell people that's 4 servings, which there's nothing wrong if you have that, but that's something again, that portion is not something we should consume daily, which is, again, why we've seen the rise in obesity in the United States and around the world, but especially the US, because we like our big portion sizes and we've kind of gotten used to them. But I don't know if you've noticed over the years, portion sizes have increased depending on the food, by 400% in some cases. That's
Well,
a lot.
I went to Mexican 2 nights ago, and I ended up bringing half my food home and ate it last night, and it was probably still honestly too much food. But I know that I still eat breakfast cereal a few times a week, and I know that what I put in my bowl, and then if I go to, say, a hotel where they have prepackaged cereals, their portion sizes are a lot smaller than what I put in my bowl, and I suspect theirs are probably closer to what one serving size is.
I love that you use the cereal, because I said that to somebody the other day. I said, if you actually measure what it says, and I've done it before, but I don't do it all the time. I said, I can't even see it. So like,
That's right.
It's really okay if we do eat, it depends again on our activity. You don't have to necessarily eat those portion sizes. But when people say to me, I really watch what I eat, and I say, but maybe we just need to look at the portions then. You might be eating great healthy foods, but again, if I go to weight loss, if someone says they're trying to lose weight, then I say, well, maybe you just need to decrease them just a little, because that could make the difference in you losing weight versus not.
So let's actually, you bring up something really interesting. So we've been talking mostly about portion size, calories, right? But maybe what we ought to be talking about, in addition to, I think it's really super important, but maybe we ought to be talking about what it is, and not just, I'm pretty sure that if I ate a diet of only ice cream and Oreos, even if I only ate portion size, that wouldn't probably serve me well.
No, you're right. It wouldn't serve you well, except I will say there was a professor, and I'm embarrassed because I can't remember where he was, but he did a diet on like junk food, but did a portion control and showed that, he still lost weight, but he wasn't professing that that's what you should do. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The quality of food is equally as important. And so we want to look for good quality food, meaning that we want to, have proteins that are lean, that are healthy, have more vegetables in our diet and more fruit, because we know that eating increased fruits and vegetables can decrease risk of chronic disease, including cancer, heart disease, et cetera. And also having whole grains, et cetera. So like people are, thinking about different types of foods. Those are some of the foods we want to get. Foods high in antioxidants, foods that are delicious. And I'm smiling that your dog is barking. Because
I'm sort of embarrassed. My office door isn't closed quite all the way.
Do not be embarrassed. I have 2 German Shepherds, and I thought, and I'm working from home, and I thought, I know they're going to bark. So actually that makes me happy, because if they do, it'll be all good. We'll be even.
Good. Well, that's Bailey, and we have a brand new 12-week-old baby yellow. He's a 9.5-year-old yellow lab, and we've got a new baby. I don't know what he's barking at, but anyway, it sounds rough, but it's really a friendly bark. So
I love it. I love it so much.
But so I'm sorry. Now I get distracted. So I think one of the big challenges is that people don't like vegetables very much. How do we fix that?
Well, there's different ways to fix that. First of all, if there's a vegetable someone absolutely hates, I tell them we have so many to choose from, to not think, okay, you have to have that just because it's quote unquote good for you, right? So if someone really dislikes a vegetable, I don't think that they should have to actually eat it. And maybe others might disagree with me, but I'm really of that camp. My mother-in-law is so sweet, because she'll say, I eat quinoa because it's good for me, but I don't really like it. I say, but Mom, there's so many other things you could eat. It's okay. So we have great choices in our country and around the world. So a good way to incorporate vegetables is, first of all, trying to cook them the way you like them. So, or cook them so that the flavors enhance. So if, for example, roasting vegetables and putting some olive oil and a little salt and pepper and maybe some other seasoning on them that you like could really enhance the taste and make people eat more of them. Another way to sneakily include them is maybe put them in smoothies. So you could put spinach in a smoothie, but also have blueberries and maybe pineapple that sweetens it. and you can put kale in there and you don't even hardly notice that flavor if, say, you don't particularly love them one way or the other. So there's little ways, and adding them to soup, like things like soups and stews are a really good way, because people then, it sounds funny, right? But it gets covered up a little bit by the other flavors, and yet people will be able to get their vegetables, in that case, typically, than they would otherwise.
Yeah, I just have one question though. Can I actually eat all the vegetables I need without eating spinach?
You can.
What a relief.
You're killing me. That's one of my favorites, but yes, you
Oh
can.
man, I just can hardly stand spinach. I don't know why that is, but I grew up in the era of Popeye, so you'd think that I'd have all this social programming to like it, but just probably that and Brussels sprouts. Although you probably love Brussels sprouts too, right?
I do.
Yeah.
Well,
Actually, my daughter's a great cook, and she has a way of cooking Brussels sprouts that I really like a lot. But
see, but
yeah,
it's
so
how
it
she
can be
cooks
done.
them for you.
Yeah,
Yes,
it
it's
can be
great.
done.
Yes, and
So I'm gonna pose a Malcolm Gladwell hypothetical for you. I was at a big senior living community a couple of weeks ago in the Denver area. I haven't written about it, but they're big enough that they have multiple dining venues in the same community. They've got close to 2,000 residents, and sort of each dining venue each dining center has two different venues, a more sit down, more casual. And so if you could come in and run an experiment in a senior living community and dining services, what would that experiment be?
wow, that's a great question. So it depends on what the outcome is, but I'm going to make the outcome be that people, I was going to say people's apostrophe s people's, not like, but that we would assess people's chronic disease, their metabolic outcome. I would measure things like in their blood, like their cholesterol concentrations, their glucose for blood, for diabetes control. I would measure lipid concentrations, and I would also measure different inflammatory markers. And in that case, I'm not focusing on their body weight. I just want to see what their metabolic profile, if you will, that's what we kind of call that. Is it improved if we change some of the foods offered in their eating facilities to, in my opinion, what I would do is increase things that are mostly anti-inflammatory and can help reduce lipids. So I would add things like avocados, pomegranates, fatty fish as their protein, increase the grains, maybe change a few things. And again, not knowing what these facilities already offer, I'm just saying this
Right.
off the top of my head, that I would try to tweak some of the things they might offer to incorporate things that can help improve people's metabolic profile. Only cooking with olive oil, doing those kinds of things that if possible, so that we could see and I would say this would need to be 6 months to a year, and to see if we could change people's metabolic profile, and also perhaps maybe even reducing people's medication or taking away a person's medication should any of this be successful.
Ooh.
So I don't know if you like that or not, but
I love that. And I know this is really cool. I'm thinking somebody needs to do this. Somebody who's watching this, somebody needs to do this. The thing that's really fascinating, and so I want to just extend this a little bit. I assume it would be fair to say that if you change your metabolic profile in a positive way, that would also be reflected in both perhaps weight and energy levels and maybe even cognitive levels.
Yes. And what did you say at the end? Maybe even what
cognitive levels? So cognitive, weight, and energy.
Absolutely. So there's some research, for example, showing that, consuming more turmeric in your diet can help with cognitive function, or even tart cherry juice or concentrate. So there are various things that can help people both cognitively as well as physically. And when people feel better, you're right, they tend to do more. Other things and tart cherry is one I would add. Beets I would add. Tart cherry can also help with osteoarthritis, as well as turmeric can help with osteoarthritis. And it depends. Not everybody gets affected positively, but incorporating those things can just add in small ways can lead to big changes if people sort of consume them on a daily basis.
So I think so we're about out of time, but the two big takeaways I have here, I think, are small changes can give you big results. And I suspect that that's probably true. And honestly, my sense is that they're not people who spend a lot of time actually doing research on older populations and diet. And so maybe that's your next opportunity as you're looking. And if you decide you want to do some senior living stuff, I know I can connect you with people. But maybe the other broad thing is that as an operator, you ought to be reaching out to Stella and talking to her. And because, I mean, imagine that you went in and did some of these things, and imagine that it got you longer lengths of stay, people who are feeling more independent, particularly as we struggle with staffing. And so people just aren't making the same demands on your staff. I just think that we really are missing out on this opportunity to make these tiny changes that really change the world for your residents. So,
thanks, Steve. I might ask you to connect me because it does. It's not more than once people from senior living areas have said, "Oh, Stella, help us change what we do." So this really is exciting that, we were meant to connect. So thank you.
I think we were. So Stella, thank you very much. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate, my favorite thing is to have people who are thinking about how to make the world a better place for other people. And so I really appreciate that. And with that, I hope you all have a great weekend.